All right, we are back with a new video, and today we'll be continuing with the Brantsteele series, and today we'll be doing Survivor, the Amazon. So, again, we have our reasoning and targets and relationship highlights turned on. Here's the cast here, and let's just jump right in. Let's not waste any more time. So, on Jabaru, there are no alliances, but in terms of relationships, we see Shauna and Joanna like each other a bit. Dina doesn't like Christy. Janet and Christy don't like each other. Janet and Heidi like each other quite a bit. We have Joanna and Jenna bonding a bit. We have Jenna and Christy liking each other a bit. We have Jenna and Jean not liking each other. We have Shauna and liking Dina a bit. We have Joanna and Heidi liking each other a bit. And we have Heidi and Christy not liking each other. So, right away, we're having some pretty interesting dynamics here. It seems like people don't really like Christy that much, but then again, it's sort of like what happened in real life where Christy sort of had a hard time integrating right off the bat. Jumping over to Tom Mckee, we have no alliances there either. But we see off the bat Ryan and Daniel don't like each other. We have Rob Sesternino liking Dan and Dan liking Rob. We have Roger and Butch not liking each other. Well, that's a change. We have Dave liking Roger a bit. We have Rob and Alex not liking each other. Okay, a bit premature. We have Ryan and Alex liking each other. We have Ryan and Roger liking each other. We have Ryan and Rob liking each other. And we have Rob and Dave liking each other. So, off the bat, it seems like Rob is pretty well positioned. People seem to like Rob. Then again, a lot of people like Ryan too, so that's a little weird. We get to our first immunity challenge, and like the real life scenario, the women win the first immunity challenge. They have won 50 waterproof matches. So, good on them. Jumping over to Jabaru, we have nothing happening there. But on Tambaki, we have Alex and Roger bonding strongly. We have Alex and Butch finding something in common, so good for them. And through that, we have our first alliance emerge where we have Alex, Butch, Roger, and Ryan all in an alliance. And in terms of targets, we see Dave is targeting Daniel. We have Matthew von Erdfelte targeting Rob. We have Roger targeting Matthew. We have Rob targeting Roger. We have the Alliance targeting Daniel. And through that, we have Rob Sesternino and Daniel Liu as the initial targets coming into this first tribal council. I can't say I'm too surprised, but we'll see what happens. So we have our first tribal here. My sense is that Daniel will be voted out here, but we'll have to see. So the votes are cast. First vote is for Daniel. Second vote is for Rob. Daniel, 2 votes. Daniel, 1 vote Rob. We have Daniel, 3 votes Daniel, 1 vote Rob. Daniel, 4 votes Daniel, 1 vote Rob. Are we going to get a unanimous vote? Nope, it is 4-2. But it doesn't matter because Daniel Liu is the first person voted out of Survivor, the Amazon. All right, so not too surprising. Obviously, Dan was a third boot on the actual season. And as you can see here, the alliance of Alex, Butch, Dave, they were going after Daniel, while Daniel was voting for Rob, and also Matt voted for Rob too. But yeah, Rob even voted in the majority to secure the fact that obviously Daniel would go home, but he was being targeted, so it doesn't mean too much at the end of the day. All right, that was an interesting premiere. Time to get to episode 2 now, where we see the women are up 8-7. Right. Over on Jabaru, we have Jenna and Christy liking each other. We have Joanna and Heidi liking each other. We have Shauna and Jean not liking each other. We have Christy not liking Janet. We have Heidi and Christy not liking each other. We have Jenna and Heidi not liking each other. Again, another change. We had Dina and Christy not liking each other. We had Janet not liking Christy. We have Joanna and Christy not liking each other either. And we have Jenna and Joanna liking each other. So again, I mean, it seems like Christy's on the bottom here, and wouldn't be surprised if she was targeted if whenever they go to tribal. But over on Tom Mckee, we have this four-person alliance holding strong. Within it, we see Butch liking Alex and Alex liking Butch. We have Roger and Alex bonding a bit. We have Ryan liking Roger. We have Roger and Butch not liking each other. We have Rob and Dave liking each other a bit. So Rob's doing some good work, but for obvious reasons, he doesn't like Matt. Oh, wait, he doesn't like Alex either. So maybe not. We have Ryan and Alex liking each other. And finally, we have Roger and liking Ryan. So with that, we get to our reward challenge where Tom McKee has won a jar of fishing bait that might be useful for fishing in that big and murky Amazon River. But who wins immunity? Of course, the women win immunity, and this might not be good for Rob Cesternino. Over on Jabaru, we see Dina having a major meltdown. Probably the pressure of all the winning might be getting to her. But we have Jenna impressing the rest of the team. We have Heidi and Jenna bonding strongly. Wait, didn't they not like each other earlier? Did I miss something? Yeah, they didn't like each other. So I guess in the time between, they must have really come back together, probably realized what they were in the actual show, and they'll do it on Jabaru. Over on Tambaki, we see Roger impressing the rest of the team. We have Butch and Matt bonding slightly. All right, that's something. And through that, it's enough to get him into this alliance with Alex, Butch, and Dave. So good on Matt. I mean, he's doing something there. Now, in terms of targets, we see Rob is targeting Ryan. We have Matt targeting Rob. We have Dave targeting Roger. We have Ryan targeting Matt. Okay. The four-person alliance is targeting Rob. The other alliance is also targeting Rob. Uh-oh. So with that, we have our targets of Ryan, Rob, and Matt. I feel like Rob will probably go home here. So here are the folks. It is time to vote. First vote is for Rob Cesternino. Rob Cesternino. Ryan Aiken, 2-1. Rob Cesternino. And the second person voted out of Survivor, the Amazon, is Rob Cesternino. And I wish I had a bell right now so I could ring the bell. So, yeah, Rob was voted out unanimously here. I mean, really not much he could do. Can't say I'm too surprised. I mean, I'm surprised he didn't really fight harder to keep himself in the game. But it is what it is. I mean, once again, Survivor history has radically changed. And with that, we get to episode 3. Over on Jabaru, we see Jenna and Christy bonding quite a bit. We have Dina and Christy really not liking each other. We have Jenna and Dina liking each other. We have Joanna and Jenna liking each other quite a bit. We have Jenna liking Janet. We have Janet liking Jenna. We have Heidi and Dina not liking each other. We have Jenna and Heidi liking each other. Wow, so I guess they probably realized that they didn't like each other earlier and that maybe their bonding experience was an overreaction. So for now, it's just a small bond. Yep. Heidi and Christy don't like each other, and Joanna, Heidi like each other. Okay. Over on Tombaki, we have this alliance, sort of a five-person alliance, but Ryan and Matthew aren't really aligned to each other. We have Butch and Alex liking each other a lot. We have Roger liking Butch. We have Roger liking Alex. We have Matthew and Butch having a small bond. We have Butch having a small bond to Roger. We have Matthew and Dave liking each other. We have Roger not liking Matthew. We have Alex having a bond towards Ryan. We have Matthew and Alex having a small bond. And we have Ryan liking Alex. So, getting to our reward challenge, we have Tom Mckee winning reward yet again. They have won toiletries, but who cares about toiletries if you can't keep your own people inside the tribe? And in the end, they win immunity. So, good on them. They finally won a immunity challenge. So, jumping to Jabiru, we have Heidi and Jean bonding strongly. And through this, we have our first major alliance forming on the women's side, where we have a six-person alliance of Chrissy, Heidi, Janet, Jean, Jenna, and Joanna. What an interesting pair grouping there. Tina, who's on the outs, is targeting Christy, probably the lowest hanging fruit there. Shauna is targeting Heidi. So we have the two outsiders going after different people there. But we see Jean is targeting Shauna. We have Chrissy targeting Dina. And the Alliance is targeting Shauna. Interesting. So we have Dina and Shauna being our targets going in, the two people outside the core alliance. So going into this vote, I would expect Shauna would be voted out here. But first, we get the Tombaki, where Dave and Ryan having a small fight, and Roger and Ryan having a major fight. So I don't know if something happened during the challenge or they were arguing over toilet paper or whatever, but this is not a good day for Ryan. I mean, he's getting on a lot of people's nerves. In fact, it's so bad that Ryan leaves his alliance because he just can't stand Roger anymore. But that will have to wait for another day because we are getting to tribal council now, and I would expect Shauna will be voted out here, but we'll have to see what happens. So first vote is for Shauna. Nothing too surprising there. Shauna, two votes. Shauna, Nina, Shauna, Shauna, and the third person voted out is Shauna. So she was voted out unanimously. Nothing too surprising there. Really a shame that the outsiders couldn't really get on the same page there. And yeah, I mean, it is what you expect. So moving forward, we have Jabiru and Tambaki here. Uh-huh. Over on Jabiru, we have the Alliance here. And at this point, Dina and Christy's relationship has devolved into mutual extreme hatred. Okay. But on the other hand, we have Jenna and Christy having a very strong bond towards each other. So Christy is definitely a polarizing figure here. We have Joanna and Jenna having a very strong bond. Good on Jenna for having some allies here. And Jenna even likes Dina, so she's kind of playing both sides to a certain extent. We have Jenna and Heidi. Jean and Heidi liking each other. My bad. We have Jenna and Janet having a small bond. We have Heidi and Dina not liking each other. We have Jenna and Heidi having a small bond. Heidi and Christy don't like each other. And Joanna and Heidi like each other a bit. Okay. So jumping over to Tom McKee, we now have the three-person alliance of Alex, Butch, and Roger. Ryan was tired of being the fourth, so he ditched the alliance. We have Tom McKee, the other alliance, where they still have Matthew in their back corner. And, we have our usual relationships. I mean, Butch and Alex have an unbreakable bond at this point. We have Roger and Butch having a medium bond. Matthew and Butch have a small bond. Alex and Roger having a small bond. Ryan and Dave don't like each other anymore. We have Ryan and Roger not liking each other anymore. We have Matthew and Dave liking each other a bit. We have Ryan just kind of bonding with Alex. We have Roger kind of bonding with Dave. And we have Dave slightly bonding with Roger. Makes sense. Jumping to this reward challenge now, as you can see, Tom Key, like the real life scenario, they have won a refrigerator stocked with Coca Cola. Makes sense. And this is the fire making challenge where the women just absolutely struggle to make fire. It seems like the same thing happened in this simulation, so that's interesting there. But the question is whether Tamaki will be able to even up the numbers coming into the swap. And the answer is yes. They have won immunity. This was the fishing immunity challenge, which is very strange, but it is what it is. Over on Jabiru, Heidi has a major meltdown. She can't stand the thought of having lost 3 challenges in a row. And on to make matters worse, we have an alliance forming with Christy, I think her biggest nemesis, Jean and Jenna. Yeah, that alliance there. And in terms of targets, we see. Oh wait, no, it was Dina. In terms of targets, we see Dina targeting Christy. Christy is targeting Dina. They hate each other. The big alliance is targeting Dina, which makes sense as the other outsider there. And we have this core within the 3 targeting Dina. So it seems like Dina will be voted out here, which is kind of boring, but it is what it is. Over at Tamaki, Matthew rests at camp to restore his energy. Okay. Jumping now to tribal council, it is time to vote. I think Dina will be voted out unanimously, but we'll see what happens. So first vote is for Dina. Dina, 2 votes Dina. Christy, 1 vote Christy. Dina. And the fourth person voted out is Dina. Voted out unanimously. Can't say I'm too surprised there. Yep. So yeah, that was an interesting early game. And now I think we get to the swap. So as you can see, we're coming into the swap with 6 on 6, 6 men, 6 women. So the twist is the youngest member from each tribe is sent to a retreat. These members will be responsible for picking tribes. So we see Jenna being picked for the women, sort of the same as the real life scenario, but now without Rob, no, without, I mean, whoops, it was Dave, I think, on the actual show for the men, but because Ryan is still there, he is goes there for the men, and through that we get our schoolyard pick, where Jenna picks Matthew, Ryan chooses Jean, Jenna chooses Christy, Ryan chooses Butch, Jenna chooses Dave, Ryan chooses Heidi, Jenna chooses Joanna, Ryan chooses Alex, Jenna chooses Roger, and Ryan chooses Janet. So with this, I mean, we have new tribes. So obviously, since it's a schoolyard pick, and since the tribes are going with equal numbers, that means that each of these new swap tribes will have equal numbers. So Jabiru has 3 men each and 3 women each. You know, again, same thing with Tambaki. I don't know. I think Butch could be in trouble. I mean, it depends, but I mean, obviously he's there now with Ryan. I mean, we have Ryan being there with Alex and Butch. That could lead to a flip pot potentially. And then on Jabiru, we have, Jenna definitely still aligned with a lot of these women here. I mean, she has Christy she could work with. The question is who she can flip. I mean, I'm not too sure. I mean, potentially Matt, but we'll have to see. So over on the new Jabiru, as you can see, we have Roger, a lone man from his alliance, and from the other alliance, we have Dave and Matt there. Over on Jabiru, that alliance has been split cleanly in half with Christy, Jenna, and Joanna. And with the core, we still have 2 of the 3 there, so that's good for Jenna. Yep, Jenna and Christy have a strong bond. We have Joanna and Jenna having a strong bond. So clearly, the swap hasn't hurt Jenna as much, at least not yet. We have Matthew and Dave having a small bond. Joanna and Chrissy don't like each other. Roger and Dave like each other. Roger and Jenna like each other. All right, good on Jenna. Matthew and Joanna like each other. Joanna likes Dave. We have Roger and Joanna liking each other. So could we see a flip happening with Joanna? I mean, could she flip the game on Christy and Jenna? I'm not too sure. And Christy doesn't like Roger. All right. Jumping now to Mckee, we see Alex and Butch still together, but now they don't have any of their other allies. They're kind of on their own. Yep, that the big women's alliance is still cleanly in half, and Jean's kind of on an island there. So relationships, Butch and Alex like each other a lot. We have Jean and Heidi like each other a lot. We have Ryan and Alex like each other a bit. We have Ryan and Butch like each other a bit. So all right, maybe this won't screw over Butch as much. We have Jean and Alex liking each other a bit. We have Ryan not liking Heidi. Ryan likes Janet a bit. Heidi and Alex like each other a bit. We have Janet and Heidi liking each other a bit. And we have Janet and Butch not liking each other. All right. We'll see what happens with the immunity challenge. And the winner of that is the new Jabaru. Good on them. Back at Jabaru, we see Chrissy and Dave have something in common, while Chrissy and Jenna continue to solidify their bond, which is already pretty strong, but I guess they just did it more. And meanwhile, Jean leaves the alliance for some reason. Over on Tombaki, Alex and Ryan bond slightly, while Janet has a pretty major meltdown. Okay. So going on now to our targets, we have Jean targeting Ryan, we have Heidi targeting Butch, we have Alex targeting Janet, we have Ryan targeting Jean. So these targets are all over the place. Meanwhile, Alex and Butch want to vote out Ryan. So they'll have a third vote there. All right. And the women want to vote out Ryan too. So it looks like Ryan will be voted out here. We get to our tribal council, which first vote is for Janet, next vote is for Ryan. Ryan 2-1, Ryan 3-1, one more will do it. And the fifth person voted out is Ryan. He was voted out unanimously. I can't say I'm too surprised here. I mean, like I don't think he had too much he could really do to navigate out of this, but it is what it is. With that, we get to episode 6 now. Yep, we have our usual alliances here. Jenna still seems to be well positioned. And usually as I go on with these, I tend to not recap everything. I'll just mention stuff that seems important. All right. Over on Tom McKee. Very interesting to see what happens now. Over there. So it seems like we have two duos at this point. We have Butch and Alex being an unbreakable bond, and Jean and Heidi also being an unbreakable bond. Meanwhile, Janet and Butch really don't like each other, so those could be the potential targets at this next tribal, possibly. But Jean also doesn't like Janet, so that's something. Oh, and Jean and Butch, man, that's interesting. Tambaki wins reward. They have won spices, fruits, and vegetables. And on the immunity side, they have also won the gift of life. So jumping the Javaru, we have Chrissy and Jenna having a major fight. This is some breaking news right here. I mean, obviously they've bonded well through a lot of the game, but now it seems like things might be turning around and it has a lasting impact, so that'll be interesting. And Jenna is impressing the rest of the team, so it's possible people might be more inclined to vote out Chrissy now. So we get that, and it's so bad that the big women's alliance pretty much dissolves. I mean, it was technically already apart because of the swap, but I guess now it's officially dissolved. Meanwhile, Jenna and Chrissy are still aligned, but Joanna has joined their lines now. That could be interesting. Now for targets, we see Joanna and Joanna's targeting Matthew. Roger's targeting Joanna. We have Dave and Matt targeting Joanna. All right. We have the three women targeting Matthew von Ertfeldte. And with that, we have Joanna and Matt being our potential targets there. And nothing happens on Tombaki. Hmm. All right. I mean, it is what it is. So, with all that, we get to Tribal Council. I mean, I think Matt might go home here. I mean, there is possibility for it being Joanna, but we'll see. First vote is for Joanna. Matthew, 1 vote each. Joanna, 2-1. Matthew, 2-2. Joanna, 3-2. Matthew, 3. Oh, so it was a tie. I can't say I'm too surprised. I mean, that's probably going to be a revote here. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there was a flip here. So, first vote is for Matt. Joanna, Matt. Are we going to get a deadlock? Oh, Matthew has been voted out 3-1. I can't say I'm too surprised. I mean, who flipped their vote? That is the question. So Roger was the one to flip his vote here. That's kind of interesting. I mean, he probably really wanted to take a shot at Joanna, but realized that he might get screwed over here, so he decided to just swallow his pride and vote out Matthew here. But okay. So with that, we get to our merge, and as you can see here, we are going into the merge with 6 women versus 4 men. And okay, let's just merge. We now have Jacare. I think that's how it's pronounced. So over here we have our alliances. We have the Alex Butch Roger alliance. We have the Alex Butch Dave alliance. So kind of a 4-person alliance in a way, but we'll see what happens there. We have our 3-person alliance of Christy, Jenna, and Joanna there. We have Butch and Alex having their unbreakable bond. We have Joanna and Jenna having their unbreakable bond. We have Jenna, Jean and Heidi having an unbreakable bond. We have Jenna and Dave having a pretty strong bond. We have Roger and Butch having a pretty strong bond. We have Jenna and Christy having a pretty strong bond despite their fight. We have Heidi and Christy not liking each other. We have Jenna and Butch not liking each other. We have Jean, Jenna, and Janet liking each other. And we have Dave and Christy kind of liking each other. So with that, we get to our first immunity challenge. This was the famous example of when Jenna and Heidi stripped down for peanut butter and chocolate. I mean, it was that challenge, but here we see Dave win that challenge. Okay. So back at camp, we see Alex and Roger finding something in common. We have Christy and Dave finding something in common. Okay, we're getting some possible new relationships, I think. Meanwhile, Jenna has a major meltdown. She doesn't know what to do. Dave leaves the alliance for some reason and instead builds an alliance with Heidi, Jean, and Joanna. That's pretty interesting. So, are we going to see like a flip here? Probably, I would think. And meanwhile, Chrissy rests at camp. So, going to this vote, we have Heidi not liking Christy. We have Janet going after Butch. We have Christy really not liking Heidi. We have Alex really not liking Jenna. We have Joanna having a slight negative opinion of Roger. Let's get to these alliances now. Wow, so the 3 men are going after Jenna here. Realize how big of a threat she is. Yep. We have Jenna's alliance going after Butch. We have this new alliance going after Butch. So it looks like Butch and Jenna are the main targets going into this vote. I assume Jenna's going to win the day, probably send a Butch home, but we'll see what happens. So first vote is for Jenna, Butch, one vote each. Jenna 2-1. Jenna 3-1. Butch 3-2. Butch, we are tied 3-3. Butch 4-3. Butch 5-3. One more will do it. And the seventh person voted out is Butch. I had a feeling that would happen. I mean, I feel like Jenna has more protection in the game than Butch, but let's take a look at the votes. As you can see, if Alex, Butch, uh, Alex, Butch, and Roger all voted for Jenna, so it was mostly men, while all the women plus Dave voted for Butch here. So yeah, that was kind of interesting. Interesting merge vote, if you ask me. So with that, we get to our final 9 now. We have our alliances as usual. At this point, Jenna and Dave have an unbreakable relationship towards each other. Very interesting. Dave also is very close to Height Christie as well, so that's also something. No, but interestingly, none of the guys seem to be holding too much against Dave right now. I mean, that's kind of interesting, but we get to our reward challenge where Alex wins reward and he chooses to share his bath banana split and brownie sundae with Roger. Okay. And Dave wins immunity yet again. It's interesting. Dave is setting himself up to be a pretty big threat. I mean, he just flipped in the last vote, and now he's won 2 immunities in a row. I mean, what's he doing? Over at camp, we have Heidi and Janet having a pretty major fight. I mean, that's something. We have Jean impressing the rest of the team. We have Janet and Jenna having something in common. We have Chrissy leaving the Women's Alliance. Instead, we have a new alliance form of Christy, Dave, Heidi, Janet, Jean, and Jenna. So I think Chrissy just doesn't want to work with Joanna anymore. That probably explains that. In terms of targets, we see Roger's targeting Christy, Dave is targeting Alex, Christy's targeting Roger. We have Alex and Roger going after Heidi. We have Jenna and Joanna going after Alex. We have this first four-person alliance going after Alex. We have this big alliance going after Alex. So Roger, Alex, and Heidi are the targets going into this. I mean, Alex is probably going to go home. We have Dave having the immunity necklace. And with that, it is time to vote. First vote is for Alex. Alex. Heidi 2-1. Heidi, we are tied 2-2. Alex 3-2. Alex 4-2. Just need one more. And the eighth person voted out of Survivor the Amazon, and the first member of our jury is Alex. Okay, I can't say I'm too surprised. I mean, it seems like everyone except for Alex and Roger. Yep, so it's pretty much them on the outs now. I mean, I guess Roger is probably the next to go unless some big flip happens. We get to the final 8. We have our usual alliances here. I mean, good on Dave. I mean, he's really working this game here. I mean, this post merge. I mean, Jenna seems to be pretty well positioned as well. No, and Roger definitely has some stuff, but I don't think he's there. We have Dave winning reward. He wins a movie night out with an all you can eat feast, and he chooses to share it with Jenna. So they finally do get together. So that's something. But we get to the immunity challenge where the winner of that is Dave. So that is now his third immunity in a row. He must be a pretty big target at this point. Very interested to see if he survives, if he doesn't win immunity. Back at camp, we see Dave and Heidi having a small fight, but it has a lasting impact. You know, we have Chrissy and Jean having a major fight. And we have Dave and Jenna having a minor disagreement. So Dave is kind of getting into trouble a bit. So we'll see what happens there. We have Christy targeting Roger. Roger's targeting Christy. But it seems like most of the alliances are going after Roger here. I mean, he is kind of the person on the outs here. We have Roger and Jean as being the targets here. This should be a pretty straightforward vote with Roger going home, but we'll see what happens. First vote is for Roger, Jean, one vote each, but it's probably going to be unanimous. Roger, Roger, Roger. And the ninth person voted out, second member of the jury, is Roger. So yeah, I mean, he made it like two more rounds than he did on the actual show. Okay. Yeah, I mean, this is a pretty straightforward vote. Nothing too fancy here. But with that, we get to our final seven now. As you can see, we have our usual alliances. Doesn't seem things have really did too much, but we see Jean and Heidi bonding a lot. We have Joanna and Jenna bonding a lot. Dave and Christy bonding a lot. Heidi and Christy really not liking each other. Jenna having a bond with Jenna and Dave. Mm-hmm. Okay. With that, we get to the Survivor auction. And let's see what happens here. I mean, first we have Dave winning a piece of cheesecake. I'm not personally a cheesecake fan, but good for him, I guess. We have Jean winning a plate of manioc. Probably not ideal. We have Jenna winning a cheeseburger and fries, so that's something. Joanna wins peanut butter and chocolate. Okay. We have Janet winning pancakes, scrambled eggs, bacon, and a bed and pillow. Okay. So breakfast and bed. Jenna wins a 32-gram protein bar. That's a very specific amount of protein. Okay. I don't know how filling that is, though. Chrissy wins a protein shake. Okay, that's probably maybe a little more filling. Jenna wins a slice of chocolate cake with milk. Dave wins a steak and a baked potato. And Janet wins the letter from home. I mean, okay. I wonder if she shared it. I mean, because obviously in the real life scenario, was it Christy who won it? Or was it Heidi? I think Heidi bought it. But then Jenna got upset because her mom obviously was sick at the time and she really wanted her letter. And obviously, through that, the deal happened to where she got her letter. But okay. And then we get to immunity where Dave is the challenge beast of the season. He has won his fourth immunity in a row. Really paying a target on his back. And he's having another fight. I mean, Dave, I mean, granted, it's a small fight, but he's having fights. I think he's getting a bit cocky with his challenge prowess, and it's probably getting on people's nerves. And then meanwhile, Jenna rests at camp. I mean, who really cares? Targets. Chrissy's targeting Heidi, makes sense. She extremely despises her. Okay. Joanna doesn't like Christy. Heidi is targeting Janet. Dave is targeting Jean. Heidi, Janet, Joanna. Okay, so this might get a bit interesting. I mean, Heidi, Janet, and Joanna are the targets. I mean, I would assume Joanna's going home as she's the least insulated of this group. But let's see what happens. So, with this final seven vote, Heidi, Joanna, Janet, one vote, 1 to 1 to 1. Joanna, 2 to 1 to 1. Janet, 2 to 1. Heidi, 2 to 2. This could get interesting. So, yeah, we'll probably have someone be voted out here unless there's a random throwaway vote, but I don't think that's going to happen. The 10th person voted out a survivor of the Amazon, and the third member of the jury is Janet. Wow. Didn't see that coming. So let's take a look at the votes here. I mean, so we have Dave, Heidi, and Jean all voting for Janet here. We have Christy and Janet all voting for Joanna. And we have Jenna and Joanna all voting for Heidi here. Interesting stuff. So with that, we get to the final six now. All right. We have our usual relationships here, nothing too fancy. I had to guess, I'd say Jenna and Dave are probably playing the best game at this point, but that's just my assessment. Dave has won another challenge. He wins a 1 hour loved one visit at a shared picnic. So he wins the loved one challenge instead of Matt. Okay. Dave can give up reward in exchange for everyone having 10 minutes with their loved one, and he keeps the reward. So, okay, so maybe Jenna's playing the best game right now because, Dave really, he's had good positioning throughout the game. And he's won challenges, but I don't know. I feel like he's been getting cocky. He's been picking fights with people. Now this, he's really elevating his threat level. I wouldn't be surprised if he's targeted if he loses. And the immunity streak is over as Gene wins the shuffleboard immunity. And for the first time in this post merge, Dave is in trouble. So back at camp, we have Jenna and Joanna having a major fight and Heidi having a major meltdown. So if I were Dave right now, I'd be hoping that these would be good enough distractions for me. We see Joanna targeting Christy. Jean is targeting Jenna. The group is targeting Christy. Christy, wow. So Christy and Joanna are the targets. That's interesting. Goes to show. The level of control Davis had so far, but Jean has the immunity necklace. I think Christy's going home here, but we'll see. So first vote for Christy, Joanna 1-1, Joanna 2-1, Christy 2-2, Christy 3-2, and Christy goes home here. I mean, I feel like Jenna was closer to Joanna for a lot of this. She probably was more committed to keeping Joanna around over Christy. So this is interesting. So with that, we get into the final five round now. So final five, we have our alliances, yada yada yada. Yeah, but at this point, there are definitely people that don't. There are people that really don't like Dave at this point. That's probably his fault. With all of his behavior. Um. So the second chance challenge happens. Joanna wins that. She wins the car. So there's that. And she shares it with Jenna. Okay. And Joanna wins immunity. So I wouldn't be surprised if, who knows? Joanna is impressing the rest of the team. Jenna leaves the alliance. Why? So going to this vote, as you can see, we have Jenna targeting Heidi. Heidi and Jenna are targeting each other. We have Joanna targeting Dave, which makes sense. We have Jenna and Joanna targeting Jean. But we have this alliance going after Jenna, who's probably the biggest. Definitely makes sense for Dave to target Jenna. She's probably his biggest competition. So, wow. So it looks like Jenna might actually go home here. So Joanna has immunity necklace. Jean, Jenna, Jean, Jenna. The 12th person voted out a survivor of the Amazon, and the fifth member of the jury is Jean. So, wow, Jenna really dodged a bullet here. Let's take a look at the votes. As you can see, she was able to keep Dave on her side. I think this was probably a mistake on Dave's end. Probably to keep Jenna in the game. Probably not ideal, but it happened. And with that, it is finale time. So we have Dave Johnson, Heidi Strobel, Jenna Maraska, and Joanna Ward. So what do we have? We have an earlier merge boot. We have final five boot. the winner, the actual winner, and a pre-match boot. Okay, that seems interesting. So with that, we have our usual stuff here. So despite Jenna and Heidi both being in the final four, they hate each other on this season. That's interesting. And Dave seems to be public enemy number one at this point. I mean, Heidi doesn't like him, and Joanna doesn't like him either. So Dave really needs to win immunity here. And Jenna wins immunity. So with that, I feel like Dave should be going home. I mean, why wouldn't he? But it seems like the targets are kind of all over the place. I mean, Jenna is laser focused on her rivalry with Heidi here. But can these alliances override it? I mean, Dave should be going home here. So, with that, we get to our tribal council where Jenna has the immunity necklace, Dave, all right, Joanna, Heidi. Oh, wow, 1 to 1 to 1. But the person going home here is Dave. I mean, I can't say I'm too surprised here. I mean, who voted? I mean, so it was Heidi and Joanna voting for Dave here. It was supposed to be 3 to 1, but Jenna just hated Heidi so much that she voted for Heidi. Wow. And with that, we get to our final three. It's all women: Heidi, Jenna, and Joanna. I think Joanna is probably guaranteed to get to the end at this point. Just a matter of who she's up against. So with that, we have our usual stuff. It really comes down to the immunity challenge here. And the winner is Jenna. Okay. So I think Heidi's going home here. I mean, nothing too spectacular. And sure enough, Heidi is voted out. And with that, we get to our final two of Jenna and Joanna here. Now, every season I've done this so far, I've been wrong with who the jury actually votes for. Now my gut is telling me that Jenna played the best game and should be rewarded by this jury. But I'm going to go against the logic this time, my own logic, and say that Joanna wins. Because that's just how things have gone on this Brantsteele. So, we get to our votes. First vote is for Jenna. Joanna. Joanna, 2 votes, Joanna. We are tied 2-2. Joanna 3-1, 3-2. Jenna 3-3. Wow, so it all comes down to one. The winner is Jenna. So this is probably a season where I should have stuck with my gut here. Once again, being wrong. But hey, so the winner of the actual season ended up winning this as well. That's kind of cool. Let's look at the votes here. So we can see that Alex, Heidi, and Jean voted for Joanna. Not too surprised here, but Jenna had every other vote with Chrissy, Dave, Janet, and Roger there. Can't say I'm too surprised. Butch has won the fan favorite. Who really cares? So let's look at these results here. I mean, so obviously, I think this is the first time in the series where the winner of the actual season ended up winning here as well. But yeah, this is interesting. I mean, Rob Cesternino ended up being a very early boot. I mean, Ryan got further. Yeah, this is kind of jumbled quite a bit. But at the end of the day, the winner won. So good on her. And let's look at these stats here. So obviously, Dave has challenged B24 immunities. Jenna winning 2. And Jenna was the most strategic, so good on her. Joanna was the next most, and Jean was third. So 3 J's on the Jabaroo Jays. Interesting. And Joanna had the most votes against her, so I thought that was interesting as well. Rob's sister Nuno was second with 8. So that's interesting. So, yeah. So that will do it for this brand steal. If you like this content, be sure to like and subscribe. I'm going to be continuing with the series moving forward. Stay tuned for that. But for now, that is the video. See ya.